Kris, I went to Austin the other day, and I think one of the surprising things to me is how scared everybody was. I mean, it was like I went to pick up something from somebody's house. Of course, they didn't know me. They sold it, and I was there was a guy and his sister was there, and she backed off clear across the yard when I drove up. I mean, literally, she was plastered up against the fence.
You sure that was the virus?
Well, no, I'm not sure at all. I mean, they were super nice, but it was the fear that they had was visible. I mean, it was tangible. He was, I mean, he came up. I didn't shake hands with him or anything like that, but still, it was just a visible paranoid. And I don't know if it's because Austin is so liberal as it is that they're much more sensitive to these things than everybody else is. You go out in the country and it's, I mean, people, who cares, but you get it more into and maybe it was the college age that are much more sensitive to it or whatever. But she was, yeah, she was probably 20s, early 20s. So, but I didn't know if you had noticed anything like that taking place in Austin.
I mean, I've been following the rules and staying in, but I love it. I can now get from South Austin to North Austin in 15 minutes, like it's supposed to be. Traffic, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
but
can't hear him very well in his mic. Oh, you probably can, but it's low here.
Yeah. My mic. Check 1 2 1 2. Oh, you can't hear me in the house that much.
yeah,
Okay.
but I just didn't know if you were noticing that much on a personal level. I know the cars obviously are different, but it was.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think everybody's just in a fearful or don't know what's going to happen kind of state of mind. And Austin it is a little bit weirder.
Yeah.
They say keep Austin weird, so we're seeing that.
I'll
for
tell
sure.
you, I really believe with all my heart. I really believe that there's going to be a quick turnaround with this thing. I think things are going to begin to change. So much of it's being hyped and pushed. I think to the point that it's presented. Because listen, I mean, if you're the newspaper, I remember some time back I was watching an interview that they did. Ted Koppel was on CNN, and he said, if it wasn't for Donald Trump, you guys wouldn't even be in existence because your ratings have gone down so much. So he has become that spark that draws the attention. And now with this virus that's been going around, people are glued to their televisions. And so when people are watching the television, that's cash. And so if I was in broadcasting, I would not be too quick to want to say, I'm ready for this to be over. I mean, I'm going to highlight everything because that's money for me from a broadcasting standpoint. And so I think that there's a lot of motivation from that standpoint that they're keeping it going, and highlighting only the bad and never the good. I remember one time I was listening to a judge talk, and he was a judge that only dealt with pretty severe cases, and to him the whole world was corrupt because that was all he saw. He couldn't see any good, because that was the only thing that came before him was how bad everybody was. And so as a result, that was just his mindset. And I think if this is all we look at, the tendencies are is this is all we're going to see. And when this is all you see, this is all you talk about, and it becomes fearful. My imagination is huge. I can take something, and my imagination will take whatever it was, and it'll make it worse than anything else. But I want to talk about for a couple of moments just a few of the things that have to do with our relationship with each other, our relationship in the community, our relationship with the Lord. And of course, you guys all have connections here to the church and have been part of the church in music and service and leadership for a very long time. And I know that all of you guys were raised in church. Kris, I didn't realize that you were raised in church when you came up as much as I didn't realize your dad was a pastor. But yeah, you were like, I wouldn't have cut you so much slack if I'd have realized all of that.
Yeah. Much more lost. Yeah. I'm the PK kid. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Well, that's the worst kind, PK. So I know that that's the deal. But I want to just go through with all three of you guys. And Jason, I want to start with you as a praise and worship leader here at the church. You were raised, I know you were raised your whole life in church, as was. And Lance, I can't wait to get to you. But I know you were raised your whole life. When did you first come to your own faith? The kind of faith that said, I'm not there because my parents. You removed my parents from the situation, all of this other stuff. This is between me now and God. When did that really take place with you?
For me, it wasn't a distinctive time. I mean, maybe in high school when I started to mature more, when I started kind of getting a little more independent in myself. But really, to be honest with you, it was a transition because watching my parents, I was the oldest of 5 kids, watching my parents depend on God and need God and God bring them through what they went through, it taught me to depend on Him on my own. I just saw them cry out to God, and I said, there's something to this at some point in my life. And I started to cry out to Him for myself. And I don't know when that happened. I think it was a transition throughout my life.
I remember, though, when you were, I want to say a teenager, but maybe you weren't, but when we were meeting across the street, and there was about 8 or 10 of you guys that were just radical, and that didn't have anything to do with your parents. That was something that was very definite, your relationship, your hunger for God at that time.
Yeah, that was a very unique time for all of us. And for me, I had come out of high school, and you get that weird transition between being a child and an adult. And my relationship with the Lord, I don't remember not having one with Him, is the funny thing. I remember as a small child laying in my bed, and I knew that the Spirit of the Lord was in the room, and I don't know how I knew it. And I would just cry. And I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years old, I don't remember. But in that period of time when I guess the Young Lions is what we were called, somebody called us back then, it was a very unique time. And the guy that was kind of leading that group at the time, he had a unique relationship with the Lord that I really hadn't seen that kind of relationship before. So it was a very unique and growth period of time in my life in that time.
It's so strange. I remember when I was a little kid. I remember going to a tent meeting, and there was a play going on of the crucifixion. Illustrated sermon is what it was at that time. And I remember, I was just a little kid, but I remember going to the altar, and I just cried, and I went home, and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I got saved tonight. And she said, well, that's good, dear.
Proud of you.
It was like, well, that's good. Way to go. But
Go clean your room.
yeah, but I think that those things, from a very early age, stick with us. Now, how about you, Kris? Now, you didn't like me because your dad he had a school, actually. It was a Bible school, and I don't know how or when that all started with you, but obviously it was very young. I've talked to your mom and your grandmother quite a bit, and
I was on the straight and narrow for all of my life, for sure. Yeah, my dad he did have a college, actually. He started a Bible college. But yeah, I'm like Jason. I don't remember a time when I did not know the Lord. My parents were pastors, and so I grew up in the church, so it was always around. I think I'm a victim of my environment to where that's really all I knew. Sunday we had church, Bible school, Sunday service, then a second service, then Monday was, what's they call it, women's church, and Tuesday it was some other church. So I was at church every single day of the week growing up as a kid, and that's all I knew. I didn't know if it was good or bad. So I think for me, I was like most kids. We go to these church camps, these kids camps, and I participated in all of that. And I think I found the Lord, and I got baptized maybe around 13, 12. So I mean, I guess I accepted Christ. But I think for me, when I really found my relationship with Christ was my junior year in college, out here in Texas. It came to a point I was in my little college dorm room by myself. It was about 4 or 5 in the morning, and something woke me up, and I just got to the point to where I need Christ. Now my environment has changed to where, maybe the parents, they saved me. I was in the church, and I had that comfortable, safe environment, but now I'm in college, and that protection isn't with me. I can walk outside my dorm room, and I feel like, where's the protection at? And that's when I have to really find that connection with God and say, you know what, Lord, I'm here. I know you. I've known you all my life, but when I walk out this dorm room, I feel like I need your protection. Please come into my life. Surround me with your angels and protect me as I walk around this college campus. And I think that was the first day I really started having a personal relationship with Christ.
It is. It's a individual moment to where you come, because even though I had given my heart to the Lord when I was very young, it was as I aged, I got involved in a lot of things that were extremely inappropriate, and the Lord really snagged me when I was about 16 years old. Just nailed my hide to the wall, but it was a life change. Now, Lance,
I think I'm in the wrong group.
oh yeah, but you were raised in church your whole life.
I was raised in church and thought I knew all about God. I just didn't like him. It's the truth. I didn't like the rules. I didn't like having to go to the church. I had other stuff to do. I was important. But I came to my own relationship with God, and in all honesty, I completely blame Jason for it. But in my early 20s, because by the time I was in my early 20s, I had already done a bunch of stupid stuff and blamed God for everything that went wrong in my life. And so I didn't like it. I mean, I literally walked out in the yard one day, told him, you leave me alone. You be whoever you think you are. I'll die and go to hell, and I'm fine with that. Stay away from me. And then, went into one of the worst panic attacks I've ever had in my life, because I had them regularly back then. And, the only way that I could get away from a panic attack was to get in a completely dark room, sit in the corner, and just rock back and forth. The only relief I could find. And I did all of that, and it wouldn't go away. And so then I decided that I needed to run to God, but I could only run to the only form of God that I knew, which was a Bible. So I found a Bible and opened it, and I literally couldn't see the letters on the page. Everything was just completely blurry. So, that made the panic even worse. So I start flipping through the pages pretty quick, and I saw one line that I could read. And I can't tell you where it is in the Bible. To this day, I've looked for it. I can't tell you where it is. But it said, "Fear not, you are not alone." And the panic attack completely left.
Wow.
And then after that, me and Jason started hanging out. And it didn't matter what we talked about. We could talk about coon hunting, baseball, whatever. Every time Jason opened his mouth, all I heard was God. I don't know how many times he'd be talking about baseball, and I'd scream at him to quit preaching at me.
What am I doing, man?
Yeah. And then when we were still across the street, Jason talked me into coming to church, because I still, even though I knew it was God that made that panic attack go away. I also kind of figured maybe it was a trick because he was going to slap me down again. And so Jason talked me into going to church, went to church, started hanging out with Jason and Mike and all those other guys. And the day, I'm not one of those. It was 12 o'clock, Sunday, April 15th. I don't know any of that. But I do know that Brother Mac was preaching. We were across the street. And it got real uncomfortable for me. I had to get out. And it was, I could feel a panic attack coming, but it just wouldn't get there. It wouldn't kick all the way in. But I knew it was coming, and I knew I had to get out of the church. And so I stood up to leave. I was walking out the door. And Brother Mac, in the middle of his sermon, quit preaching and said, "Lance, before you leave, your life is not your own." And just him saying that,
Wow.
all of a sudden God showed up. And that day, I told God, all right, I give up, I'll be with you.
Wow. That's incredible. You know, that story, of course, I mean, that's a heavy thing. A lot of times I think we misunderstand or whatever God in relation to us. I remember before I was 16, and I was in some bad stuff, and there was a lot of dark days ahead of me. I mean, it was not going to be good. And I remember the weight of his conviction. He was trying to basically divert me from going into this wall that I was just about to go into. I mean, it is the grace of God that I'm here because of that. But I'm telling you, the pressure, it weighed 900 pounds. And I will never forget the weirdest thing. It was a spiritual thing that happened. I remember where I can take you to the corner where I was standing in Oklahoma City. I was 16 years old. And oh man, the weight, the pressure, it was so heavy. And I remember out of frustration, I told God, I said, "Get off my back." And the moment I said that, now people can believe or whatever, but it literally was like somebody lifted a coat off of me. It was gone. I mean, instantaneously. It literally felt like a garment that was on me that was lifted off of me. And all of a sudden, I felt so light and so carefree. And I just went on my way. And I went through about 6 months of hell on earth. I mean, it was a train wreck. But the fact was, God responds to us in ways many times that I think we don't even recognize. But it is amazing. He'll track you down and he won't leave you alone. He'll stay on you until finally he works you through it.
Oh yeah, and that he'll let you paint yourself in that corner.
Yeah.
And eventually you get tired of being kicked.
Yeah.
And so you have to turn to the only one that can help you.
Yeah.
And it's always him.
Well, I've got this question I want to ask you guys because I feel like this is essential based on the fact of your relationships with the Lord, given the dynamics of all of the social distancing, the virus, a lot of fear going on. What concept, what story, what passage, what is the word that you personally have to sustain you, to sustain your family during this time? I mean, we all have our own personal reflections to say, this is the story that stands out to me, and it could be maybe an experience. I think sometimes that's why God gave us the Old Testament, was because those were experiences that happened that we can reflect on. Well, I think there's personal experiences in our own life that we can reflect on, that God did this, and I remember it. But for you guys, Jason, I guess I could start with you. Is there any passage, is there any story, or what is the backboard that you reflect off of during these times?
The theme that kind of has been running through my heart, it's a couple of scriptures that I can kind of quote from to illustrate the theme, but it's to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding.
No.
And so, although I don't understand, we don't understand why things have happened maybe, or where this thing's going, or any of that stuff, I'm not leaning on my own understanding. I'm just, when I feel that fear or that panic or that those questions come, I'm immediately turning that and saying, no, I'm trusting in you, Lord. And another scripture that has really been running through my heart here is the rest, that there's a rest for those in Christ Jesus, because something weird, and I don't know if it's just with me, is going on with me in this whole thing. Our society is so chaotic. There's so much stuff all the time. There's so much stuff going on. You feel like a chicken with your head cut off. Even when you go home, people are having a hard time resting. And through this whole thing, I've been at such peace. My home is more peaceful now than it's been in a while.
Wow.
We're all home together. Me and Kim's talked about this. My kids are home. We're home. We're safe. We're staying in the house, but we're visiting with each other. We're loving on each other. There's no yelling and screaming. There's no chaos. We're relaxed.
Wow.
We're trusting in God, and there's a rest there. And I noticed it, and I said, God, what is this? Why is everybody else panicking? I'm not panicking. What's going on? And that's what came to me is, you're resting in me, and your family's going to rest.
Now, Kris, you have a recording studio. You're really connected to the music scene in Austin. You've got quite a few relationships that are probably have nothing to do with God, and so you have an opportunity to see how they respond and all of these all of these things. How do you balance all of that? Is there something that you rely on? Is there some story or whatever the case is that given, because not everybody that you talk to, obviously, you're going to say, now we need to trust in the Lord. Now you may say that, but I don't know that they would completely understand it as you would. Right. But so from your standpoint, what is it that you hold to?
Yeah, I mean, first, I think Jason, you hit it on the head. I'm in the same situation. I'm really at peace. I'm actually excited right now for this time that we're in. There's a lot of negativity, like you said, that we hear on the news. But yeah, I'm in a situation where I have a lot of people that I'm in contact with that don't have a relationship with Christ, and I pray. I still pray with them. I still, as much as they want to expose me to whatever they want to expose me to, I have my responsibility, and I think that's why God's put me in the situation that He's put me into, because I'm still going to expose them to the Word and the Christ, and I look at Deuteronomy. That's one of the scriptures. I think it's 31, that God will never leave you nor forsake you. And I think another good book to read is I've been going back to read your book. Talking about adversity a lot, and not to grow weary and faint during adversity. And that's pretty much the thing that I'm telling, my family, my household, and the other musicians and artists, they just don't grow weary in this time of adversity. The gigs might be slowing down, your source of income planning, the bands and studio work might be slowing down, but don't grow weary in this time. And on the more, take it out the spiritual level, on a business level for anybody watching, don't feel like, okay, well, things are slowing down, I have to discount myself. I encourage you, don't discount yourself, but add value to whatever you're presenting to your product, so you don't have to discount that. If for me as a studio musician, if I'm just offering you music at one particular rate, and society, people aren't spending money as much, maybe I want to offer music and recording and mixing, or just add something else to your product, so that way you can still get your flow work kind of continues to go. 'Cause I think that's where the fear comes from. Once things slow down, it's not really what's happening. It's just the fear and the unknown. And people do a lot of crazy, stupid things when fear kicks in and they don't know. So I think I guess back to your question, the scripture-wise, spiritually, just know that God will never leave you nor forsake you. That's been the one scripture that I've been holding on to.
That's good, because I've wondered a lot of times, especially musicians, people who make their living off of an audience.
Yeah.
They do not have an audience right now. They've got I say, we're almost acting like this thing has been going on for 2 years, and when actually it's 14 days, But still, that can alter your financial position when you don't make any money for 14 days, and so that can be overwhelming. Lance, what do you have that you rely on?
Mine was actually a dream that God gave me a while back, and it was so real that it was one of those, like Paul said, whether out of the body or in the body, I don't know. It was one of those dreams. And God, without going into the dream, because it's a long one, I guess, but through it, God showed me that there's tons of details out there. There's tons of things that are trying to get our attention. And the only thing worthy of our attention is God himself. And so, it doesn't mean that, this with Corona and work and everything else aren't important, and that they don't need to be handled, and they don't need to be handled with wisdom. But it does mean that if our focus is on God and God alone, everything else is just a detail. God's going to work out the detail. Honestly, because, at the beginning of it, I was thinking, man, if they shut my work off, this is going to get bad quick. But, you think about what God has done before. You read the Bible and you see what he's done before. You think about what he's done before in your life. A while back when everything fell apart for me, he didn't abandon me then. So why would he abandon me now? Why would he carry me through all of that to bring me here and let me die? Doesn't make sense.
As I was saying the other day, that complaining is a subtle form of atheism. To worry is,
fear is.
It really does. It's a terrible thing. Okay, real quickly, here we are. We've been isolated for a little bit. What is your guilty pleasure junk food while you're in this quarantine? Mine is those coffee M&Ms. Have you guys had those? Yeah. Oh my God. We're going to change it to.
Don't tell me about them.
We're going to change it to COVID-19 pounds, because that's what I've gained since this thing in 2 weeks. I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me. I can't even fit in my clothes. All right, junk food. What's yours?
Okay, I'm going to get a boo on this one, because I've actually used this opportunity to somewhat fast.
Oh, yeah. Okay, next.
Boo, now, I say that. I say that with the caveat of I have been eating some ice cream.
Okay.
My chocolate ice cream.
Then it ain't a fast.
That's my fast.
Just ice cream. No food, just ice cream. Okay.
I've fasting everything but donuts and ice cream.
I'm fasting everything but fatty foods. I eat all those. But I've switched over from my coffee intake to tea that is relaxing, whatever it is, stress relief.
Heresy.
Yeah, well, it's because we're stuck in the house, so I figured a lot of caffeine is going to make it worse. So
you need to drink a lot of caffeine and give your kids a lot of sugar.
There'd be some WWF going on if we did that.
Kris, what's yours?
I'm guilty with the ice cream. But I've been putting these Reese's, smash them up. You know, you freeze them, then
Oh,
you smash
man.
them up, and then you roll it into your ice cream.
Yeah,
So I'm
see,
gonna
that
have to
doesn't
try
get
these
better.
coffee M&Ms and roll them into my ice cream, vanilla ice cream,
Oh, listen,
Bluebell.
I'm just telling you,
It's-
these things are dangerous.
yeah.
And I don't eat. It's kind of like whenever we go, when we're going to eat, some people will bring us a cake. And I'm not going to eat all of that. There is no way. I'm not eating any full slice. But what I will do is as I walk by, I'll cut off one little tiny slice. And then I'll go on my way. And about 15 minutes later, I'll come back, cut off a little slice. Well, you did that for about 4 hours, and you've eaten the entire cake. Oh, that is where we're at. How about you, Lance?
I'm not quarantined. My life hasn't changed at all from this. I've been social distancing for years. I'm good. I go to work and go home and go coon hunting. So I don't have one.
Why ain't y'all came over yet? What's going on?
Yeah.
Why don't people come and
Now,
see
this
me?
was for me, all of this is oh man, I was gonna come over, but I can't.
Oh, Lord. All right, one last question. Handshaking is going to change. I heard, I don't know how true this is, I heard that the ancient, I love Lance. Lance
Don't.
makes me smile. I can't help it. The ancient background of handshaking was that you extended your hand to show you didn't have a weapon. And that was the reason why they would both shake hands, and then it began to devolve from there. There's a lot of people who like not shaking hands in the first place. A lot of germaphobes, people, which is very hard on me because I'm a toucher. I'm hugging everything that moves, and so finding what this is going to look like, because I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to scare people off. Jason, what do you think? What do you think it's going to
I think you
evolve
can
into?
if we let it. I think it's just like, and with the society as a whole, but as the church, I think we need to not let some of that stuff happen. When I was a kid, it seemed like churches hugged each other a lot more, the members. It seems like that's kind of died down a little bit. And I think it's because we let it.
Oh.
So I think, obviously we want to give
You think the
people their
handshaking
space.
is going to disappear?
I think if we let it, I think it could.
What
as
would
far
take
as
its
what we-
place?
Staring at each other. Maybe a nod. Sup. I think we just got to not let it happen.
Not saying a word, just looking at each other.
Glare. Give him a stank eye or something.
Every now and then throw out a, well, all right.
We just got to fight it.
That might not be too bad. Are we going to put this up for a vote? Because I vote for that one. Just look at some.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's painful.
It brings a whole nother meaning to the meet and greet.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, there you go. That's what we need to vote on. Y'all just up here, y'all just play some music. Everybody just
All right,
looking at
everybody.
each other. Nobody.
This is our
walking
time of
around.
service where we stare at each other. Stare.
You just walk in front of somebody. I vote for that one.
Glare and stare. That's it. Instead of plug and play, it's glare and stare.
Oh, that's funny. Chris, what do you think is going to replace it?
I hope we stick to the handshake. You know,
You think it's going to go to the fist bump? I see the elbow thing, and I think that just looks stupid.
Chickens out there trying to fly.
right to the peace sign, man.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, in many parts of the world, they don't shake hands anyway. They bow, and it's a very respectful thing. I'm not saying that that's wrong at all. It looks very nice, but it's just culturally speaking, it's so different.
Yeah, the people around here just wind up bumping heads. And
What do you think?
I don't think it'll change a bit to the people that it meant something to before anyway. Because
Yeah.
if you shake somebody's hand, that means something. And the people that actually care about it and that it actually does mean something to, I don't think it'll go anywhere because it's always going to mean something to them. And the ones that it don't, it doesn't.
Good point.
You know, I noticed it already starting to change before any of this stuff. In town in Austin, there's lots of folks that they seem a little bit uncomfortable with a handshake. You know, you get out of town, you get out here in the boonies, and it's just the way we are. But it seems like that our culture's kind of already started that.
I think if you can go to Austin, cough in your hand,
That's a reason to get out of a handshake. Yeah. If you don't like them,
we're going to scare the people away. I've enjoyed this. This has been great. We need to do this again. You guys up for it?
Yes.
All right. Appreciate you being here for this today.